time. Where did COVID-19 come from? Did China lie? Well, we know the answer to that. Yes, they did. But how about this question? Did organizations, news organizations, help them lie? The New York Times now faces charges of doing just that by playing down the lab leak theory and shilling for the Communist Chinese Party in Beijing. With us, Ashley RINDSBERG. He has spent years researching the history of the New York Times, recently writing an article for Unheard titled, "Did the New York Times Stifle Lab Leak Debate?" Note the question mark there. He's also the author of The Gray Lady, Winked, How the New York Times Misreporting, Distortions, and Fabrications Radically Alter History. Ashley joining us now. I noted that there was a question mark at the end of that article, headline that you just wrote. Should there be a question mark, or to your mind, should it be an exclamation point?
That's a great question, Leland. I think there's clearly a case to be made that something was amiss with the New York Times' coverage or lack of coverage on lab leak. For a year and a half, they actively dismissed it, discredited it. They called people names such as racist, if anyone dared to explore it. And I think all that remains of the piece of the puzzle is what was the mechanism of that relationship between the Chinese government, which was paying the New York Times money for advertising in the New York Times paper for a decade. So how did that work? What did that relationship look like?
This is from the article that you wrote. At the start of the pandemic, the Times set the news and policy agenda on the lab leak hypothesis, discrediting it and anyone who explored it. The Times did so while taking money from Chinese state-owned propaganda outlets. Again, you have correlation. Do you have causation?
That's right, and we do have a clear correlation. But even that, when you're an institution as important, as powerful, and influential as the New York Times, you have to even avoid the appearance of impropriety because you're a news organization. People are placing their trust in you. Governments are placing trust in you, and if there's even an appearance that something is off, that should be enough to create distance. And that points to the fact that the New York Times did take Chinese money, Chinese propaganda money for 10 years. That in and of itself is enough to say something is wrong here. But when you even go further and say the Times has been pursuing long-term investments in China, in the Chinese media space for the same period of time, a decade, we again have to say things don't look right. It doesn't pass the sniff test.
So Ashley,
and that's where the New York Times already should.
Yeah, but it's not just the New York Times. Disney, for example, has huge interests inside of China. It's no secret that the Chinese use their influence on American movie studios that are also co-owned by companies that have big media interests as well. So is everybody not covering things that make the Chinese angry?
You know, I'm sure there is a organic and natural skew across the board when it comes to China. The influence is so pervasive across the media, as you're pointing out, Leland. But the New York Times is different because it is the New York Times, because it does play such an important role in setting the news agenda. So other editors across the media, as you probably well know, look to the New York Times for how they're going to cover a given issue, especially one as important as lab leak and the origins of the pandemic. So when they decided to take this particular approach to lab leak, which is to discredit it, they sort of gave the rest of the media a nod to go ahead and do the same thing.
Even Jonathan Karl of ABC noted that, and proud of him for doing it, saying that we have egg on our face for not covering this. So far, no mea culpa from the New York Times. Ashley, we'll have you back on when they issue one. Thank you.